On today's Men of the Apes, Todd does not know how to spell library.
They greenlit the sequel without a story in mind. They just wanted to equal an unexpected gold mine. He said, oh no, as Heston said, I got to go. These are just some of the facts you ought to know as we go. Beneath the Minute of the Apes. Beneath the Minute of the Apes. Beneath the Minute of the Apes.
The only good human is a dead human.
Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, the daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet of the Apes movies 1 minute at a time, even when it's nothing but tunnel talk. I am Todd. I got Richard and Sean. Are we going to talk about something other than tunnels today?
Yeah, we're out of the tunnel, I think.
Good stuff.
Man, when you're finally out of the tunnel, that says you're finally on to a good movie, all right?
Yep.
All right, so it's minute 54. Sean, tell us what's going on.
All right, we start minute 54 with Brent and Nova walking towards the camera and ends with Brent and Nova approaching East 52nd Street.
Here comes your exciting minute in 3, 2...
All right, it's minute 54. We have 3 living humans, 4 dead humans, 1 dead ape, a shooting of apes, and a gaggle of humans. All right, so here's what I need to know.
Yep.
Has the entirety of New York City sunk underground, or are they outside after coming in through the subway, going through a tunnel, up just a little ladder, another tunnel, and now we're seeing all these New York landscapes?
So what we see very historic sites of New York. We see the public library. We see Radio City Music Hall.
The Stock
Exchange. Now, before we get to your question, this is done with matte paintings.
Yeah.
I did find an interesting thing that the mattes weren't just simple matte paintings. They were actually photos that were kind of carved up and chopped up, and then they put into mattes. So it has a photographic element to it, so they come off with a little more depth and texture than you'd usually get with a matte. I have comments about it, but now you've put that thought in my head. I never thought about it, that now it's subterranean.
Yeah, so is everything sunk down, or I don't know. If they still underground, or are they above the ground now?
That's weird.
This is it. Note, the city's general design should be based on the premise that it was buried in the nuclear war of 1990.
There you go, Sean.
Wow, 1990.
Buried under a canopy of bomb-melted rock.
Okay. Yeah, because there's actually a bus that has melded with rock as well at some
right.
point.
So my thought would have been, an eruption, but this is literally nuclear bomb melted rock.
Yeah, but to cover a whole city underground, that's kind of strange.
So what we get is a lot of they first walk up on the public library, the very iconic thing that has the two lions laying out front and guard. We do not see them in a shot with it. They look at it, then we get an over the lion shot towards them.
OTL?
Where it's a fake line they built on. I kind of wish that what we then see was they walk past the Stock Exchange and Radio City Music Hall, where they're inserted in front of a mat, so that you see the grandeur of it. I wish we'd seen that. And I also find the sequence very weird, because we've all been in New York City, right?
Well, real quick before you bring that up, because I know what you're thinking, going to say a thing. I felt like this scene was like whenever a movie goes to London, hey, you got to see Big Ben, you got to see Parliament, hey kids, Big Ben, Parliament,
right?
You see all the things that is London, so now they're doing all the things that is New York.
So what I wanted to see I wanted to see a passage of time, because
it just feels like they
Literally
stack
go from
everything right next to each other.
It is 3.8 miles between.
Well, there
So
you
you
go.
actually looked
You
it up.
figured it
between
out.
the New York Public Library and the New York Stock Exchange.
So that's
I didn't know. We just went
it
about
was
a year ago with my daughter, and I remember going to
3.8.
those two, and it was like, that took us like half a day to
And it
walk
happened in
that.
2 seconds for them to walk by
Right.
one to see the other one.
So how do you do that in film? You put a dissolve.
Yeah.
You either put a dissolve or the camera, as they walk out of it, then the camera lingers for a second, and then it moves up to them. So it's the passage of time. It's anything, and they do
but they don't-
nothing.
They give you no perspective.
These
Yeah.
are quick cuts, and I get what they're wanting,
They're
but
trying to say it's New York, but come on.
yeah, you've at least got to tell me that they're walking a long way. And that, the funny thing is that would actually give more to what's going to happen in coming minutes with, again, what we talked about, thirst. They've been walking for a long time. You build that in.
Yeah.
We know as humans you need water.
I mean, you see them sit down
yeah.
and just rub their feet or something.
Well, they're doing the exact same thing that I complained about when they were walking down the corridor earlier. We don't see them moving also in a right to left pattern across these monuments. They're also moving.
They're crossing the line. Rude.
They're moving around dramatically. They're moving from left to right to left, right across, towards the camera, all this kind of stuff.
If you'd put dissolves in, then that changes it. You
Yeah,
need to do that.
I'm trying to pretend like there's a passage of time in this moment, but in the minute we see those monuments, we see the New York Public Library, we see the Radio City Music Hall, we see the New York Stock Exchange. Do we get to we get to East 51st Street,
Yeah, that 51st
which is
Street, yeah.
not where any of these buildings
No.
are.
No.
None of them are there.
Which is that? I don't know. Is that 52nd Street supposed to be a thing? I don't know.
I don't know.
When you think of New York, you don't think is 52nd Street a thing you think of? I didn't know.
When they walk in front of the New York Stock Exchange, I suppose it was kind of nice that they were on like a dirt kind of road, if
I liked
you will.
that too.
And we got a sense of how small they were and
Yes.
compared to the building itself that they were walking by. I don't know about you guys, but I would have been terrified. I mean, if I would not have been in awe. I'd have been like,
What the?
I would
Right.
be like, what is in these caves? What is in these moments? What is in these buildings? What I'm about to encounter? I would have been terrified.
I had that very note that for all the odd inserts where we've seen Brent react or Nova not react, why don't we have anything of Brent reacting?
Like why
That
isn't
could have
he-
been the passage of time too, where he's reacting.
You think you would have run into one of these buildings, like at least the library, to see what the latest book in there that he can find or something?
And even if you don't show that, just at least show him
Being stunned.
and wiping, maybe not tears, but like wiping the stress from his brow, anything like that. Because the realization, there's none of it. It's just sort of
Yeah,
like
I mean,
we're going to
if-
paint the scene.
If you go to the library and just pulled out a crumbling book or
Yeah.
something, yeah.
Well, I liked the script direction that it was buried in the nuclear war of 1990.
Mm-hmm.
So to give us a sense that
time when
that
at least
the astronauts are 20 years from that we now know when
Right.
they left Earth
At
to a
least
certain
before
extent.
1990, yeah.
Right. But I think it's interesting for Brent and for the audience that we have to see stuff that remained unchanged
Right.
from 1970 to 1990, and monuments that honestly would remain unchanged for 20 years.
Yeah.
But why
largely.
why put that detail in the script if you're not at least going to have
acknowledge that in the movie itself.
Yeah, he could have walked in anywhere, and it could have been he could have walked in and found a deli that had the date on the sandwich board or anything like
something
that.
with a date would have been ideal for this
and
moment.
he walked
for
in,
sure.
and then he could have at least said, "Well, we at least made it 20 more years after I left." You know,
Sure.
he could have said anything. It's like they want to create a world, but they don't want to explore the world.
When he saw Radio City Music Hall, I mean, why didn't he run in to see if there was any concessions? What if there was food or
Right.
scavenge something at this point? We're just walking around the city in awe.
I think about Escape from New York. You know, Snake Plissken goes into that, and we see a lot of landmarks as he goes along, but he interacts with them.
Yeah.
He goes in, and we see what it's become. Even a moment like that, but again, I know they had no budget for anything. How do you do this? But
because these are all map paintings or whatever.
right,
Yeah.
a moment for anything would have at least let this scene breathe. There's nothing to it. It is simply a succession of shots that say nothing other than what we already know. He's in New York.
Well, we're trying to give people the same sense that when they saw the Statue of Liberty for the first time.
That probably is what they're trying
They
to evoke.
we're trying to show how widespread the devastation was.
And I'm sure there are people out there hating us right now, screaming at us, no, it's doing this and this. Look, we're breaking this down 1 minute at a time. And when you look at it 1 minute at a time,
You find all the faults. Yeah.
you look and you say, no, maybe we're filling that in our mind that he's seeing these and feeling it, but there are no shots that show him react. There are no shots that give us other information besides that he walks past these 3 locations, so it establishes the further degradation of that society.
We're relying upon the audience being shocked by these monuments than Brent being shocked by the monuments.
I know that logically it wouldn't work, but they're not using logic in these movies, so there could have just been a newspaper stand with the date on it and just saying war and stuff like that, and he pulls out a newspaper and goes, obviously, and then it crumbles away in his hands.
A nice moment in the new films, and I won't spoil anything for you, is when we go along and we see the buildings that now have vegetation growing over them, and it'll say Simeon whatever on it. I won't say it because I don't want you to know, but somebody spray painted graffiti, and it suddenly, because you've watched
graffiti on this would have been nice,
and it's wow, this now laps together. Anything like this. Maybe he found a sign that says war sucks or anything like that just gave the ramifications of what they did to each other.
Yeah. Well, particularly because we did so much with the chimpanzees earlier, not wanting to go to war, that were kind of mimicking peace protests.
That would have been a nice little book into that.
Mimicking peace protesters.
It's almost like the peace protester is universal, and then it's not so apparent that they're just trying to bring up what we do now, but they're actually tying them together intentionally.
Yeah.
That'd have been nice.
Okay, I think we're missing the elephant in the room.
Uh-oh.
If they are underground, where is the damn light coming from?
Oh, that is a good point.
I mean, it is perfectly lit in all these places, but if they're supposed to be underground, what is the...
Sean, there's some kind of intelligence at work here.
Really?
Yeah.
And it's not the director.
Yeah, they're stirring up lights. That's what Brent told us. There's an intelligence at work here. They stir up lights.
Or something.
Yes. They stir up some lights so that they would follow this.
I mean, if this is supposed to be underground...
That's true.
It should be very, very dark in there. I mean,
it should be shafts of light coming through the crust above. It should be
him with a torch walking around or something somehow that he's done. I don't know.
So
It's true.
I mean... They walk by these monuments. The monuments are largely devoid of any color whatsoever. Everything is just kind of a sepia-toned,
bluish gray.
Yeah, everything is just kind of washed out. There's no sense of color. I think the only color we got in this entire scene was the bus we first saw at the beginning that had some red in it.
Yeah,
whose windows was smashed, but it was kind of lifted up and partially encased in rock. The script says parts of the 2,000-year-old original structure. 20th century bricks.
So now we have a date. It's been 2,000 years. All right.
20th century brick, stone, concrete, and perhaps even corroded sewer signs might still very occasionally show through the predominantly white structure and interior decor of the 22nd century catacomb complex scooped out of ancient foundations. At a moment, the narrow streets stand silent and empty between windowless walls. And then it was a nice kind of interesting moment to pick this 50-second mark, 53-second mark, where we're now shot of them walking between two. Well, I don't know why the shot was for them to linger on this moment of the East 51st Street sign.
Nothing more than just interesting shot.
The East 51st sign, but just kind of they're not walking left or right across the screen. They're coming in between. We're seeing visually them between two walls, but they do come through these walls. And I honestly don't. I mean, I can't imagine the bulk of America knew what East 51st, if there was any relevance to East 51st Street.
Okay, but you know what it does? To the bulk of America, we don't understand those streets in New York. What we hear is 42nd Street, 51st Street, and so it just evokes once again somehow the New York idea of it.
I think they would put Broadway or something like that. I don't know.
You would think.
As much as they've gone with iconic things.
A familiar street name would have been worthwhile.
Now, I want to be fair about something too, though. This is a very low budget film. Arguably, the budget slashed in half from what the first had. The reason I say arguably is I actually saw a couple of notes today where there's some inconsistencies in what people say the budget was. What we have is 2.5, but there are a few that say it was much higher than that. But still, it was slashed. For a film that doesn't have a big budget, I do think a couple of those shots where they walk by Radio City Music Hall,
they look good. Yeah,
it's a good thing where you see them along the gravel in front of it. I think they do a good job of that. That looks very good. It's just that for a film that had so much emotion when we saw the Statue of Liberty before, this film lacks human emotion. There's none. It is devoid
There's no
of
attachment to